The gentleman comes from the coast. He was in Aga Khan. I see another lady in Nairobi, and on the first meeting, they are hugging like they were friends for so many years. And I was like, what? I was raised up in a PEFA background, Pentecostal Evangelistic Fellowship of Africa. Now, if you know PEFA, we never even used to hug. Yeah. Hugging was a sin.
I've heard of that.
Hugging was a sin. Like, you never used to come close to a sister.
Yeah.
We were born again and going to heaven vertically. No, horizontal relationships were not encouraged.
Yeah.
And so that was a shock to me.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Pulpit podcast. This is episode 13 and I'm your host Tracy Ann. As usual, it is good to be here with you today again. A lovely Thursday. It depends on when you're watching, but we do premiere every Thursday. I'm reminding you, Thursday 5:30 we premiere every single episode. So karibuni sana to our new episode. Karibu sana Larry.
Asante sana.
My co-host.
Yes.
Na kukaribisha episode ni kama
nikaribisha, it feels nice.
Ni kama wewe unakuwa interviewed. Anyway, karibu sana. How have you been?
I've been good. Thursday 5 p.m.
See 5:30?
Producer 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Okay.
Yes, 5 p.m.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. 5 p.m. So also do not forget to subscribe. Ini wimbo tunaimbaga every episode.
Jo, nimekumbuka kitu moja. Last time hatukusema hii kitu imekalia imetoka wapi.
Hodari.
Like
the name says, it is hodari. Wanatengenezanga viti hodari. So yeah. Like the name suggests, I mean it's perfect.
Yeah.
Miguu hazifiki chini lakini we thank the Lord. Short lives matter. Short people's lives matter. Anyway, today's episode we have a very interesting guest. His name is Philbert Julai. He's a marketing expert. Tumwita expert, no? Because he has been in the field for quite a while. So we'll call him an expert. He's a marketing expert. He's a father. He's a husband. He is passionate about discipling kids into growing the godly way.
Family.
He's an author.
There's the book.
He's an author. There's a book. There's a book here. He's going to talk about it. I am interested into getting into this episode. First of all, after tukianza, I think I'd really like to know what's on this. This looks like your wife and you. So let's get into it. So hi Philbert.
Hi Tracy, how are you?
I'm good. Karibu sana to our set.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's interesting to have you here finally.
It's nice to have you here.
It's very nice.
Thank you for
Thank you for creating the time.
The profile is
hey. Ushaona LinkedIn profile ya mtu unashindwa jamani. But it goes to show that when you have so many years in experience, that's how your profile looks like.
When you sent me his profile, na
scroll
scroll.
Mimi niliona ilifika mali nikaona Oxford niko kwisha.
You know in LinkedIn you can scroll, then it skips that person, then inaendelea tu kuscroll. Yeah, so I'm wondering, skip. But bado iko kwa Philbert.
His profile is amazing and he's going to tell us about it. How he has been able to put that all in. I really also want to create my LinkedIn profile and let it grow. So karibu sana. Let's get into you introducing yourself.
Yep.
Nimesema jina, nimesema you're a husband, but you can now introduce yourself with whatever I have not said.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm very grateful for you giving me the opportunity to just share my story.
You're welcome.
You know, they say that your story is yours.
Yes.
Nobody else can share your story better than you.
Fact.
And that's what makes marketers. And so I'm very happy to be on the platform. My name is Philbert Julai Mdindi. Mdindi is my father. I am married to one Christabel Wabuda. Hi, babe. I hope she will watch this episode.
She has to.
I have 4 children. My firstborn is 16. Keith. Ian is 11. Joey is 7. And Anaya is 3. My only girl. So I have 2 girls in the house. I am a marketer by profession. with over 17 years experience. I've been in the market for a while, and I think that's why we are here.
Yeah.
We'll be talking more about that, so let me not go into the detail. I'm very passionate about young people, especially parenting children, because I hold the view that for us to change our society, we have to start with the family unit. And therefore, parents playing their role in raising children the God way will make the impact that we desire to see in our society. So if we want to kill corruption, let's start in the house. Let's start with the children. Let's start with how we bring them up, because majority of these values are inculcated in the home setup.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's basic. In a nutshell. That's
that's Philbert. I come from Coast.
Really?
Yes. I come from Coast. I'm a Taita. If you want.
Oh yeah, that's why they're interesting. Actually, the name Mdindi is very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
All his names are unique.
Julai.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know another Philbert?
No.
I don't know another.
Maybe not.
Never.
Right?
Even July.
Yeah.
Never.
Hata producer alikuwa anamuuliza watu kuita Philo. Phil.
Yes.
Don't really.
So, yeah, I come from Coast. I am born again. I love the Lord very much. What else? I think the rest will.
Yeah, the rest will come along. Any other title or whatever you do that has not been mentioned in your introduction will come along.
And a soon to be coach. That's very important, because certified professional coach.
Coach.
Wow.
There's so many coaches, like
Yes,
life coach.
Yes.
Life coach.
No, our
Football
leadership coach.
Oh, leadership coach.
Oh, football, no man, you could lose a hand. Yeah.
This one is slandering my football team, but it's
Man,
okay.
you could use a
Let's
hand.
not get into that battle right now. Hey, Taisha.
Yes.
When we start our podcasts, our episodes, we usually like to know where our guests have been brought up, your family setup, kidogo, where you grew up, and then because it's also a very core thing in your upbringing and in who you are right now.
Absolutely.
So take us a little bit through that,
and
then now we are going to get into why we are here today.
Great. So Philbert Julai is a sixth born son. Sixth born son. So second last, sixth born son. So that tells you we were 7 siblings, 6 boys and 1 girl. All right. The girl, our only sister, was the second born.
Okay.
She's called Alexia. So I'm the 6th born son of Mr. Williston Mdindi and Edna Manga, my lovely parents. I was born and brought up in Taita, from primary school all the way to high school. The first time to come to Nairobi was when I was going to campus. I went to campus at University of Nairobi.
Oh wow.
I did Bachelor of Science, Biochemistry and Chemistry. And
to completion.
Put a pin on that, because as you've heard, it's Bachelor of Science, Biochemistry, and he's a marketer by
and
profession.
I said I'm a marketer by profession.
So that's
a whole story. I should be in the lab, but I am a marketer.
Unatengeneza maji unaandika triple distilled.
You know?
Lol.
Yes. So so I would say I pretty grew up in shags. Think about your typical life in the rural setup is what I went through. I was a day scholar. I woke up in the morning. Yes, throughout my life I was a day scholar. Woke up in the morning. Used to be about our school in primary school. It used to be about 3.5 to 4 kilometers
from home.
From home. So every morning I'd commute to school, and lunchtime I would go and move from school to home and back. Eat and back. So when we sit to have a meal, I'm a very quick.
Really?
Yes.
You had that discipline.
I ate very fast.
That discipline was instilled.
Yes, because of the discipline and the little time that I had. So if we've ever had food together and you realize that it's like I sniffed it, please don't think that it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's because of how our the environment in which I grew up. High school, I was also a day scholar. I went to a school called, primary school. It's very important to mention this. Ngulu Primary School. Ngulu Primary School. And my high school was called Canon Kituri High School.
Oh, wow.
Canon Kituri High School. It's a professional school. Granted, you don't know it, but trust me, right now it's a national school.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Proud of it.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful to God because I think those journeys of growing up nurtured my leadership skills because I was a prefect. In primary school, I was the head boy. Then I went to high school, I was a prefect throughout, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4, I was the head boy. I was also the chairman of the CU.
Oh, wow.
And also another important one to mention is I topped our class in primary school. I also topped our class in high school. So I'm very honored. I'm very honored to have had that privilege. Yes.
You've mentioned CU, and as Beyond the Pulpit, we do talk about salvation and all of that. So can you tell us when you got born again?
Yeah. So when I was born again, I think I was in class 6. This happened when we had a conference. I remember the gentleman who had come to preach had come from Canada. He was called George, and he spoke about eschatology. I don't know if you've ever heard about eschatology.
Yeah.
The end times.
Study of end times.
Yes, the end times. And he passionately spoke about the Armageddon. You need to read Revelation. The Armageddon, the great tribulation.
Yeah.
And it felt like the world was coming to an end the following day. And I had to dedicate my life to Christ.
Yeah.
Mapema.
Yes, so that I am secure. They say, afadhali ukufe, you go and discover on the other side that there was no God.
Yeah.
Rather than you die and then you discover there was God. So I said, you know what? I surrender. And that's how I personally dedicated my life to Christ. But granted to say that I was raised in a Christian home. So, I would be those people who said that I was born again. Yeah. So that has been my life, and Christ has helped me to date. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that it's a difficult thing to survive as a marketer when you're born again, and probably we'll get to talk about that a little bit later. In my 17 years of experience, I have hosted a lot of parties, and the parties that are hosted by marketers have a lot of alcohol, and the alcohol goes with many other things. But through it all, God has helped me to be able to keep my salvation and to keep my faith, and to be an example to other young believers who are coming up in the profession that it's possible to stand even while you practice as a marketer.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never heard of anyone saying that it's because we've talked to lawyers. They say it's difficult. I didn't know even marketing.
Oh yes,
there's a bit of a challenge there.
Very difficult. So you can imagine, for example, I'll give you an example. In my early years, I used to something we call brand assets in marketing. It's a platform that you create, that you build endearment with customers. So at Safaricom, we used to have Safari Sevens. Have you ever heard of Safari Sevens? The rugby. Where Safaricom, we used to call it then Safaricom Sevens because it was sponsored by Safaricom. Now, as the brand manager, then you can imagine I was in charge of the assets. Now, you're the one who organizes the whole event, of course, in collaboration with many other stakeholders. You have alcohol brands, you have this, you have that, you have that, and you have to bring all these people together to deliver a wonderful experience to the customer. I mean, how many of those will you host?
So many.
Many. And I mean, for you to be able to just stay true to your testimony, even during those periods, late nights, a lot of alcohol, free alcohol actually.
Free.
And majority of the people that you're hanging with are people who are taking alcohol. I mean, it's something that requires the grace of God. We thank God. We thank God you're here. We thank God that you stood firm in your faith. Okay, so
you've mentioned Safaricom. We've jumped ship kidogo too.
Yeah.
But let's start with University of Nairobi.
Biochemistry.
Actually, let's start with, you were a child who was grown up in Ushago, Mashinani, Bundus, they call it.
Yeah.
Now you've come to Nairobi for the very first time. How is the experience in that? Was there a bit of what do we call it? Culture shock, you know. And then joining uni, doing that course, the entire 4 years. Now just take us a little bit through that.
Very interesting question. I think I'll just try and point a few memories that come to my mind. Of course there was a little bit of shock, because the transition was very, very, very huge. Coming from Shags, completely never been exposed, and then now you're into university, never been in a boarding setting. And then now you have come to a university where you're living in hostels and you actually self-manage. Never been in a scenario where you have pocket money because you're in a boarding. Like I used to commute from home, so once in a while, yes, my parents would give me pocket money, but it was not a constant. But now you're coming to a space where now you have funds that you need to manage. I think important to mention is that I also say that I am a son of the community, because people in my village raised funds to take me to the university.
Interesting.
And so I come from a very humble background. And the reason for that is because my father was a teacher, and my mom was a housewife. But my mom had a heart challenge. And at the point where my father was retiring, he had to spend all his retirement benefits to take care of my mother. And so by the time I was going to the university, my father didn't have the funds to take me to school. And so the community had to rally behind to contribute for me to be able to go to the university. So every time I go home, I always know that I am a child of the village. And when we talk about my book later, I'll mention the principle of children belong to the community. That as a child, you're not just a child of your father. You are actually a child of the community, because you will have a lot of people around you who are going to influence how you develop as a person and the person you become. So those dynamics then, give you a taste of how it would be like now to land in the University of Nairobi, where there's a lot of freedom. You don't have anybody to manage your time. You are not answering to anybody. But I really thank God because of salvation, because my tendency was to always play it safe, and so I would find safe communities to connect with. So I found the main campus Christian Union, which formed a home away from home for me, and that really helped me to be able to keep myself busy, because right from the first year, I think I was selected as one of the Bible group cell group leaders, and I would be a leader of a cell group that has from first year to fourth year. And so that those communities kept me glued. The other one is I used to serve in the worship team away from my home church. And so I also plugged in when I came at the university from day one. When they did the orientation, there was a desk for CU, and so I went and signed up. And they asked me, which ministry would you like to serve in? And I told them I'd like to serve in the worship team. And I think in the second week I got an invite already to go for the worship team practice, audition, and then practice. So from the first week I plugged into ministry, and I think that was able to help me to find my footing. But the shock was there. The first day I remember when we went to Chiromo, in one of the halls to begin our lectures. I would see strangers, a gentleman who I know is coming from the coast.
People you know?
No.
Oh, okay.
Conversations, hi, I come from, yes. the gentleman comes from the coast. He was in Aga Khan. I see another lady in Nairobi, and on the first meeting, they are hugging like they were friends for so many years. And I was like, what? You know, I was raised up in a PEFA background, Pentecostal Evangelistic Fellowship of Africa. Now, if you know PEFA, we never even used to hug.
Yeah.
Hugging was a sin.
I've heard of that.
Hugging was a sin. Like, you never used to come close to a sister.
Yeah.
We were born again and going to heaven vertically. No, horizontal relationships were not encouraged.
Yeah.
And so that was a shock to me, that I would see people, you know, hugging. And then fast forward, I also got to see other ministries within the university, and the way believers engage and interact, and they hug, and they're close, and I'm like, oh my God, is this? Yes, this is different. So that was a shock to me.
Yeah.
It took time for me to be able to adjust. I thank God that I was able to adjust really fast, but not to say that I started hugging people around. But I mean, I started to understand, this is a different cultural context, and people are coming from different backgrounds, and I need to gel with time. The other shock was on, granted, I had a very good appreciation of time management. So that really helped me to keep my sanity around managing my classwork and then ministry activities that I was involved in campus. So I was able to, from day one, to be able to start studying. One thing I knew for sure is that mimi nimetoka shags na shags sitarudi. That one was very clear in my head.
Yeah.
So when I was joining the university, I knew mahali nimetoka sitarudi. Like, I came from a humble background. I don't want that kind of a life for myself and my family. And so I started to work hard from day one. Focused on my education. Yeah. I knew I was not the brightest of the students again. And here I was meeting people who had come from, you know, the best schools in the country.
Yeah.
So the sharpest minds. Yeah. In fact, I remember one of the top students of our year was actually in our university.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I knew that I am not a genius. You know, I'm not those kind of guys who would sit in class and don't take notes and they pass their exams. And they were there. I would not lie to you. They were there. Guys who don't even come to class. But when you're given a cut, they excel. But I was not that kind of a person. I knew that I needed to read and read again and read again for me to grasp the concept. So from day one, I knew that I needed to start reading my notes. And that really helped me in my journey of campus. So I would say, yes, there was shock. But I mean, God provided different touch points that helped me to be able to adjust and integrate at the university very well. Yeah.
So why did you decide to do a Bachelor of Science?
Oh my God, I did not decide.
The government
decided for me. So yeah, I wanted to do medicine or electrical engineering.
Okay. I
missed the cutoff point with 1 point. I had 44 points and the two courses required 45 points. I was actually even willing to settle for nursing.
Really?
Yes, because I had a lot of passion on medicine. And again, I mentioned to you that my mom had a heart challenge. And so because of that, I had this idea at the back of my mind that I could one day become a doctor and help so many children, or help so many families or help so many people who come from a background like mine. I used to hear of Dr. Gikonyo because he's the one who used to treat my mom.
Okay.
He's the one who operated. My mom had an open heart surgery and it was done by Dr. Gikonyo. So I had this interest to meet this person, to become like these people who are making such a huge contribution and impact in saving people's lives. And so I wanted to become a doctor. So that is what actually led me to do biochemistry, because biochemistry is closer to medicine than nursing, than anything else.
Okay.
Because I was called to do BSc, double maths and chemistry.
What about things like pharmacy? Courses like pharmacy?
Yes, pharmacy was there, but pharmacy was different. Pharmacy was not going to give me the experience of a medic.
A doctor,
You understand?
Yeah.
If you talk to medics, they'll actually tell you biochemistry is one of the toughest courses they do. In fact, they don't like it.
We've heard.
Yeah?
We've seen
they'll
people.
tell you, man, biochemistry was tough.
Yeah.
But that's what I did as my primary course. And I think the idea for me then was, when I do biochemistry in future, I can transition into medicine. Yeah.
Okay.
You said biochemistry and chemistry.
And chemistry. So it was, so I was called to do BSc, Bachelor of Science, General. And then when you go there, you need to specialize.
Yeah.
And so I picked double maths and chemistry.
Double maths
And chemistry. So I did that. Now, in chemistry, in your first year, if you scored A's, if you did very well in chemistry, you could transition to biochemistry.
Okay.
So I did very well in my chemistry. In fact, I think I was the top 2
in uni now.
In uni.
Okay.
On our first year. And so I transitioned to do now biochemistry and a minor in chemistry. And so I dropped the math units.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hiyo ni course inaitwa ya kushtua kijinji.
Yeah.
I think here on site we can also see how smart you are. Okay, biochemistry, from what you've heard, is not a joke, even from friends in uni.
A lot of reading. I would not lie to you. It was a lot of reading.
Of lab work.
It kept me. Yes, you do experiments. You leave the machines stirring something.
Yeah.
And then you go back in the following day in the morning. Yes, centrifuge. They were called centrifuge machines.
Yeah.
They'll be rotating like this. So you put the chemicals, and then the machine is supposed to be shaking that chemical the whole night. We even made aspirin in the lab.
Making medicine.
Yes, we used to work with rats. We would do medicine.
Live rats.
Yes.
Operate on them.
Yes, you manufacture a chemical, you test it with the rats.
Lab rats.
In the lab rats. They look like rabbits. They're very mzunguish kind of.
Interesting. That is so interesting. So after 4 years, that was 4 years?
4 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
4 years, you graduated.
Oh yes, I graduated. By the grace of God, I passed. I missed first class with a whisker. Yeah, I really wanted to get a first class, but I missed it with a whisker. But yeah, I got a second upper. And I think just when I finished campus, I built very good networks along the way.
Yeah.
So one of the friends of mine who we were together in the CU called me and told me, Philbert, there are jobs that are being offered at Wilson Airport by a company called Top Image Africa.
Top Image.
Yes. He asked me, do you want to be a teacher? I asked him, what do you mean? Yes, teach people. Teach people what? Then he said, teach people M-Pesa. M-Pesa was new. That was back in 2007. That's when I finished campus. And by the way, M-Pesa was launched in 2007.
Yeah.
So it was a year old. And so I was like, teach people M-Pesa. I was like, yeah, sounds like an interesting thing. I'd want to give it a shot. So he told me, do your CV. And that time, remember, when you're finishing campus, you would... I remember I had spoken to my brother. My brother used to work in a computer company. And he told me to buy a rim. I bought a rim. And you print so many CVs because now you're getting into the job market to go and apply for jobs. So I printed many CVs. So I remember one, he told me, carry your CV and the copies of your documents and then go to Wilson Airport. So I asked him, just like that? Like, he said, yeah. I don't need to apply and then wait for them to call me. He said, no, just pick your CV, then go to Wilson Airport, go to this kind of office. They'll look at your papers. If they think that you can do the job, then they'll give you an opportunity. So I printed my documents. I remember it was around 11 a.m. So I went to Wilson Airport, got to the office. I found so many young people.
Yeah.
So the company used to be a below the line advertising agency.
What's a below the line?
Good. I'm glad you asked. So above the line is where many people see. So TV is above the line.
Okay.
A billboard is above the line. A radio is above the line. So when you say above the line advertising, it's those ones. Below the line advertising is more of one-to-one, one-on-one. So when you do activations on the ground, that's below the line.
Okay.
So that used to be a below the line agency. So it was contracted by Safaricom to manage M-Pesa. So we were the ones who used to go to deliver the phone. Before then, Safaricom used to give phones to the agents. So this is an M-Pesa agent, a new M-Pesa agent. Unawapelekea simu, you activate the phone for them, you train them on how to use the phone, you train them on how to do reconciliation, you train them on how to do registration.
The transactions and all of that.
Yes. Then you deliver flyers, you put a registration book and a logbook. A logbook ni ile unakwanga umesign kama umeenda kufanya transaction.
Oh yeah. But these days they
You
don't
know
do
those
that
things?
anymore.
I don't
Yeah,
see
we've
that
seen that
anymore.
kitambo.
Yes, and they ask you for an
They're
ID.
very- yeah.
Then they put the
These
details.
days they don't do that, but
Exactly. So those things were called KYC requirements. Like you need to know your customer. So it was a requirement when a customer comes to your shop, they must produce their ID.
Yeah.
And you take the physical copy and write the names, because we used to have a lot of fraud before. And so to avoid being defrauded as an agent, you needed to ensure that you pick the right records, the right person. The person before you is the person requesting for funds or doing the transaction. Again, to avoid issues of money laundering and all that. So those were very important requirements. And so we would be the people who would be reinforcing those things on the ground. And that was the first job. So they received my CV at 11. And in the evening, they called me.
You have the job.
At 5. They told me,
Did
you
you
have
do
a job.
Did you do an interview?
Yes, I did an interview.
Oh.
So I presented my papers. They gave me an interview opportunity. I remember the gentleman asked me who I am, where I come from. He asked me, what have you done? He asked me, can you be able to teach? I told them, yes. He gave me an example. He said, if you have this product. In fact, he picked something on the table and he told me, sell this to me.
Oh wow, practically.
Practically.
Oh wow.
So I was able to articulate and say the benefits of that thing and convince him, and he removed 200 shillings and gave me to buy the thing.
Oh wow.
And I think that sealed the deal. I got the job. So in the evening at around 5 p.m. I was told, you have the job, report tomorrow in the office.
Now this is after uni, after graduating?
Immediately, I think it was a week after finishing campus. I had not graduated.
Oh, the final exam.
Yes, after finishing the final exam. In fact, I was lingering around campus because a friend of mine who was in architecture, we used to call it ADD, architecture, drawing and design, was still doing his evaluation. So he hosted me for that 1 week as we transitioned. So before we left that, we finished those 2 weeks, actually not 1 week, with those 2 weeks, that's when now I got the job.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Hey. Okay, so now you've gotten the call.
So I moved, I got the call, went, and I was given my first job. Guess what? My first salary was 12,500 shillings.
Per month.
And that 12,500 shillings required me to finance my job, because I used to live in Gara. The office was at Wilson Airport. So every morning I needed to pay my fare to Langata. On your way to Langata, you drop at Wilson Airport. And then you'd also finance your movement. So you'd go there to collect materials, then you come back to town, because my market was in town. I'm the one who set up a lot of shops in town.
Within the CBD?
Within the CBD.
Okay.
Simba Telcom, Ludhuli Avenue, along those Ludhuli Avenue, those Walalo shops there. I'm the one who set up majority of them. Tomboya, Ronald Ngala, those ones were that was my market. a lot of people in those streets knew me then because I'm the one who trained them on M-Pesa and merchandised their outlets.
I can imagine now, after 4 years, you're very familiar with town.
That was very humbling experience for me. Why? Because I was expecting a lot of money.
You thought?
I was expecting to be respected, man. I did a degree. How am I earning 12,500?
You're a biochemist.
I am a biochemist. How am I earning 12,500? It was extremely humbling.
Did you see it as a job? Ama ulikuwa unajua ni side hustle kabla ugraduate?
So I looked at it as a side hustle. So I mentioned to you that I was given a rim and I printed a lot of... So of course I was still distributing a lot of CVs in the market. But the jobs were not forthcoming. Okay, granted I was given a number of interviews in certain pharmaceuticals, but they never gave me the jobs.
Because you hadn't graduated
I don't know why, but my colleagues, some of my classmates got those med-rep jobs.
Interesting.
But I never got a med-rep job. So, I mean, 12,500 and, you're just starting life. I was very blessed to have a brother. One of my brothers was living in Nairobi, so he hosted me. So at least the item of rent was taken care of. We shared a little bit of shopping, but my contribution was minimal. Again, he really cushioned me at the start. And so that 12,000 would largely go towards financing my fare. And granted, the organization would refund at the end of the month.
Did?
Yes, they would refund. But you needed to produce receipts. Imagine receipts za matatu.
Unatoa wapi receipt ya matatu?
Sasa inabidi unatengeneza.
Unaambia makanga ibu saina pa kidogo.
Inabidi unatengeneza because yes, because that time it was not M-Pesa where you'd pick the transactions. But again, the company required you to produce a receipt for them to do a refund. So inabidi sasa unanunua receipt book and you just fill the amount of money that you are charged when you moved.
That's funny.
So if it is 20 bob, unaandika 20 bob yako so that it can be refunded.
Yeah. That's funny with transport.
Yes, imagine.
So how long did you work at Top Image?
So I worked at Top Image for 2 years. And I remember when one of our team leaders had an issue and he was suspended in Nairobi. And the CEO, she's called Jennifer Baraza. I can mention her confidently because I'm very proud of her. She gave me an opportunity to get my first job.
Okay.
She asked who is going to raise their hand to take team leadership of Nairobi CBD. I raised my hand. I said I would want to be the team leader. So I was an acting team leader for a period of, I think, 4 months. And an opportunity opened up in Western. One of the team leaders was let go in Western because of some challenges. And so an interview opportunity occurred. I interviewed for the job and I was actually selected as a team leader. And in so Western. I was sent to Western Kenya to be the team leader. So I was in charge of Kakamega, Busia, Malaba, Malaha, as in the big region in Western Kenya. I know Western very well.
Yes.
Mumias. Yes.
Producer wetu ametoka huko, so it's very
fantastic. So we can talk about Mumias because I actually used to live in a place called Lurambi in Kakamega.
Ameguza mlima.
Yeah. So I stayed there and guess what? I didn't know Western completely, but I knew someone. And I think this now talks to the power of networks. When I was at the university, I was very good with networking.
You mentioned
our CU chairperson used to come from Western Kenya. And so when I told him that, man, I've been posted in Western and I have no clue where to start, he told me, I'll send you to my mother and he'll take care of you. Dude, can you imagine?
Oh, wow.
And so what he did, he called his mother. He said, Mom, there's a gentleman who we used to be together at the university. He has been posted in Western. Please help him to settle down. Guess what? I stayed with that family for I think 5 months.
Oh wow.
Yes, because the mom took me in, and she took me in as a son. She took me in as a son.
That is very rare.
Imagine, it's unbelievable. She took me in as a son, and of course I can't thank her enough. She made my life very, very comfortable when I was there. We would identify a house, and she would tell me, that house you have identified, that location is not very safe.
Yeah.
And she would say, you are not moving until we get a house in a place that is safe. And I actually ended up staying there for 5 months. I finally got a house on the 6th month.
Yeah.
And then the following month, I got a job at Safaricom. So I had to leave.
Oh, come back to Nairobi now.
Come back to Nairobi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You can't.
So I would say that for the longest period that I was in Western Kenya, I was hosted. So I found a mother in Western.
Second mom.
Yeah, my second mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So every time I go to Western or Nyanza, I always ensure that I go and see my mom.
Yo, that is beautiful.
Yes.
That's beautiful friendships. I don't think a lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
At the host beshte yangu for a while.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Just goes to show that you're also a very trusted person. Yeah.
Of course, I used to behave myself. And the Lord has been good.
That's how he's saying that with a lot of humility. I used to behave myself.
Yes.
So how did you land your job at Safaricom?
So trained biochemist, below the line advertising.
Hakuna mali tumesikia umepractice biochemistry.
Yes, but I have not practiced. So below the line advertising, I get this job. I'm sent to Western. I am the team leader. When I was in Nairobi, I did my job very well because one of the principles that I strongly believe in as a Christian, the Bible says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it as unto the Lord. And so I did my work with my heart. And I always say, even if your immediate boss is not seeing your work, if you give your work the best, there's someone somewhere who is actually seeing what you're doing. So I excelled in Nairobi, and that opened the opportunity for me to become a team leader.
Yeah.
So when I went to Western, the market was bad. It was one of the worst performing markets in the country. And so I had the job of cleaning up the market. So the agents were not trained well, merchandising was not done well. So I managed to bring the team together, and we combed the market. When I say we combed the market, is I would go in with my team. I tell them, we are working on so and so's market this week. You know, because what used to happen is you develop your itinerary to say, I'm going to visit this and this and this and this outlet. And I would say them, I want consistency in our standards. And so for me to be able to demonstrate that, I would say we will do it together. And so I was a hands-on person. So we would go together as a team, and then we would do a number of outlets that day as a team in your market.
Yeah.
We would clean up them. We would pull out the posters that you put up badly, and then we would put new ones. We would put the standards, and then we say, now you need to replicate this in your market.
Oh, wow.
So we did that for everybody.
Wow.
And in 1 month, my market was the best market in the country.
Wow.
So when that began to happen, the performance of M-Pesa outlets in Western began to improve.
Yeah.
And then as a result also, agents and dealers, we were collaborating very well. We came up with ideas, and we began to do promotions to push the awareness of M-Pesa. Transactions also began to grow. And so this created a lot of attention from Safaricom because remember, that's what they were trying to do. And so they were setting up a trade development office for M-Pesa, someone who would be supporting the sales team in selling and in activations, and then someone who also would be responsible in procuring of all the materials that are used in M-Pesa. And so that role was created. We interviewed. I remember 400 people were shortlisted. I was among the 400. Then it went to 14. Among the 14, majority of them were team leaders before. They had also started the M-Pesa job way before me. Majority of them were people who are from Top Image. We did the second set of interview, and by God's grace, I got the job. So that's how I moved then to Safaricom.
I have a question before we proceed.
Yeah.
Right now we see a lot of small shops having M-Pesa agents.
Yes.
Was it like that back then, or you just have an M-Pesa shop?
Before then, it was not like that. Before then, in fact, it was required that you need to set up M-Pesa, and the M-Pesa needs to be your primary business.
Oh.
Yeah?
Oh, okay.
So you actually you'd be required to invest. It used to be 200,000 float, 100 on the phone and 100 in cash.
Okay.
So that when a customer comes to withdraw, they have money available. And I remember those days it was not possible for you to withdraw 100K at a time. I think the limit was if my memory serves me right, I think it was 40K. 40K was the maximum amount you could withdraw per transaction. And so you see 100,000 would give you a couple of transactions before you run out of cash. So it was a requirement. And then if you also wanted to be an agent, one of the requirements used to be also that you had to have 3 physical shops.
M-Pesa shops are just
M-Pesa shops.
Oh.
All of them painted very well with
Green.
the counter. Yes, green, merchant painted very well, labeled.
Yeah.
With a counter.
Yeah.
With a place where customers would be served before you are given the till to start operating M-Pesa.
Oh, wow.
So later on is when they began to open up for M-Pesa to say now we can be able to do it in the chemists. Now we can be able to, so that it's no longer, because
now.
what used to happen is at some point agents began to struggle. They were not making enough money to be able to sustain the business. So Safaricom figured out for this to be able to work, we need to then make M-Pesa a complementary business, not a primary business.
Yeah.
So you'd say, for example, if you have a bookshop, we would then come and convince you to say, on top of the bookshop, you can actually have M-Pesa and you can serve customers. And we found that model working very well, because now majority of those people who had another primary business were better in terms of cash flow. Yes. Yeah. Customers would never miss float because they were able to rearrange themselves and be able to allow customers to transact.
Another question.
Yes.
How are M-Pesa agents, how do they make money with the transactions? And
so M-Pesa agents used to make money in many ways. Number one is registration. Remember that time M-Pesa was new. So we needed customers to register for M-Pesa. Every registration used to make an M-Pesa agent 100 shillings.
By registering M-Pesa, it doesn't, not necessarily having a Safaricom line like right now.
So when you have a Safaricom line, you have the person who makes the money is the dealer.
Okay.
Is the Safaricom dealer, because they sell lines.
Yeah.
But then that line cannot do M-Pesa until it is registered. Yeah. So you had to go and then tell the M-Pesa agent, I need to register for M-Pesa. So every M-Pesa registration used to earn an agent 100 shillings.
Okay.
So that's the first area where they would make money. So that's why they would actually do activations to push registrations, because registrations was a source of revenue. I think it still is. The second one is every transaction you did had a commission for the agent. So with withdrawals and deposits.
Okay.
You understand? And that's why, in fact, withdrawals had better commissions than deposits. Yeah. And that's why you'd initially, I think there used to be a lot of fraud where agents would say, for example, if you're going to withdraw 10,000 shillings, they'd tell you to break it down and withdraw 2,005 times.
Oh, because
every 2,000 shillings there's a commission. Every 2,000 shillings there's a commission. And so that was arrested as a fraud issue. So we began to put measures in place to discourage that behavior, because then that would mean that for a single transaction which you should have paid a single commission, you end up paying 5 times of the commission. So that's the other way they would make money. basically that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they make money from commissions and registration of new customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, question.
Yes.
I see different types of M-Pesa shops. Kuna zile small scale na kuna
Yes.
zile fancy.
Yes.
The
Which also-
Safaricom shops.
Yeah,
now.
Yes.
like in malls now we call them Safaricom
Yeah,
shops,
yes.
but ideally in M-Pesas that
Yeah.
maybe they sell phones or customer care.
Yeah.
Tell us about them.
So those ones, I would say they have really evolved. So initially,
Also,
yeah.
in the same question you can add, do they make the shops themselves ama wako financed na Safaricom?
No, you're not financed by Safaricom. You make your own shop. You make your own shop, and then Safaricom enables you. So that give you the visibility, that help you with merchandising, and then of course, because they talk about their customers, if you put their logo there, that they have invested in that logo, people know it.
Oh wow.
I mean, so yeah, when I'm in the streets and I see the Safaricom logo,
Yeah.
I come to your shop.
Yeah.
That logo is the investment of Safaricom.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I honestly
because
thought,
I mean,
is it duka zote ni za
brand,
Safaricom?
and that's why brand building is such a critical thing for any business, because you see, you first of all create mental awareness, or rather mental availability, for customers to know that when you need this service, it is available. And then when that person goes out to the streets, they can spot, oh, this is where I can get the service. So that's the investment that they make. And the agent would require them to do the shop setup. So initially you would find, for example, an M-Pesa agent who has like eight tills. I don't know if they look like banks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Teller one.
So the teller 1, teller 2, teller 3, teller
Yeah.
4. Yes, and that would mean that you can be able to serve many customers at a given time.
Yeah.
And those who started that business early, I mean, they made a lot of money. A lot of money. Yeah, so those used to be called class A agents. And so then there would be those who probably would have, for example, 10 tellers. Then others would have 5. Then others would have only one till. Yeah. So those would be different classes of agents. And the level of investment is per till, not per shop. So you see, when I said that you needed to invest 200,000, I think it was 100,000, 50-50. 100,000 per till. So if you have 8 tills, it means you are investing 800,000. 100,000 for each of the tills.
But it's one shop.
Yes.
Okay, but it's one shop.
In one shop, but for them the shop is the till, because that's where the customers come to do the transactions.
Interesting. I honestly thought all these malls, when Safaricom has a new shop, that Safaricom, so I'm like, Safaricom has so much money.
Yeah.
Every single mall, there's a shop. There's a big Safaricom shop.
Do
And they're
Safaricom
everywhere now.
set up their own shops? Wamewahi set up
Safaricom has its own shops, and then now there would be the dealers, the people who represent Safaricom in specific regions. Now you'll also discover, as the business continued to grow, they also had to empower their dealers and agents more. That's why today, when you go to a dealer, you actually find a customer care desk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was privileged to be actually at Safaricom when that was happening, and I think I set the first 100 customer care desks in Nairobi CBD. I remember I'm the one who had designed the branding. It used to be under Safaricom Enterprise, where the dealers were being given now the autonomy to be able to recruit, for example, businesses that used to use internet, and they can be able to do contracting and sign them up. Before, it used to be done directly at Safaricom, but then the business grew so much, and so they had to empower their dealers to be able to handle some of that of those opportunities to diffuse traffic to their shops and to customer care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we proceed into now your experience working at Safaricom, you were talking about starting at top image. and how 12,500 was a bit of a challenging experience and very humbling for someone who is a biochemist. It was a first job.
Yes.
Kuna hustle ingine ulikuwa unapiga hii Nairobi?
So I think I've had a number of humbling experiences. One of them is when I was in third year in campus, I didn't get an opportunity for internship. So, you know, when you normally look at the newspaper, there's normally that side of classified.
Yeah.
I identified a job that was in Nairobi and I applied. It was a sales job. Nikaitwa interview, nikaenda. Nikaenda kuuza, ilikuwa inaitwa Little Trees. Car fresheners. Car fresheners.
They look like trees.
Yes, the thing that look like trees and you hang them in the car. So I got that. It was a sales job. And imagine it required me to sell that on the streets. So I became a hawker. Kwa streets. Hapo Nairobi nilikuwa napanga hizo vitu hivi. Ninauza hapo kwa streets. And I think for me, one of them, that was very humbling for me. Remember, I'm at the university. I'm a third year. You know,
you're supposed to be in. Actually, internships is it's such a core thing in university.
It's very core.
Yeah,
it's very core. It's because it's supposed to give you a work experience. Yeah. It helps you to have a footing when you're looking for a job.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had to sell in the streets. I remember tukifukuzwa na hawkers Nairobi. No, hawkers wenyewe. Because
fellow hawkers are chasing you away.
Apparently, the hawkers have territories. So this is my street from this area to that area. So they share.
Okay.
So they have a number of people who share that street.
Okay.
So every time a new person comes, that person is an intruder. Actually, the hawkers who are in that street can harass you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, it was very humbling. I think for the most heartbreaking thing at that time was if you umepanga hizo little trees zako, and then you see someone coming and then they wind up their window up.
They're not interested.
Man, that was very heartbreaking. So I think along the way, I have learned to be very gracious to people in the streets, the hawkers. Actually, I would pull my window down to even just say hi. Imagine you would have made my day if you greeted me that day, because nimeshinda nikizunguka. I've not made a sale. You know,
and then you're busy
the whole
rolling
day.
up your window.
And then when you see me coming, you close your window. It was very heartbreaking. But it's a learning for me. I try to accommodate a conversation, you know, just make a joke.
Yeah.
And you make the day of that person.
That's something I've learned. Yeah. Because you never know this.
Yeah, that's one of the humbling experiences. I mean, the 12,000, very
another
humbling.
One.
But I thank God, because I think it was after a month, the salary was reviewed and it went to 22.
Oh, before you joined before you became a team leader.
So when I became a team leader, it doubled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question about the internship.
Yes.
You said instead of getting an internship, you went... Did that affect your studies?
No, remember you are on a break, 3 months break. You remember you closed first semester.
Oh, it's not like attachment where
no.
It counts as marks in school. Okay.
It was not like a requirement.
Oh, okay.
But you know, personally, I was like, I need to build some work experience.
Yeah.
Granted, at first year, I got an opportunity to go and teach in a high school. As
chemistry.
Yes, I was teaching chemistry, mathematics, and social studies.
As part of
learning, gaining experience. Okay. And I think for 3 months, I was able to teach at a school called Coral High School in Mombasa. So in second year is when now I couldn't find internship, and I said, let me try my hand in a sales job. And yeah, it was very, very humbling.
Then the little trees job introduced you to marketing.
And I remember the day I quit is
the little trees now.
Little trees. I went 3 days, morning to evening, without a cell. Morning to evening.
You gave
umechapa kilometers nyingi. And then I remember on the third day I sold, and the little tree used to cost 100 bob, and your commission was 10 shillings. I went back. I told the CEO, thank you very much for the opportunity.
I'm done. Isi yangu. Yo, but that built resilience.
Yeah, but man, it was...
That's tough.
It was tough.
That's tough.
Yeah. So for a period of a week, I had earned 30 shillings.
Sikia kuambia mtu anakufungia dirisha. Unajua mimi niko na degree.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I would be like, yani kwa nini unanifungia dirisha? Unafikiria mimi ni mwizi? I'm a graduate actually. As in, that's what would be going on in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm actually a graduate. I'm just trying to
survive.
To survive. Just give me an opportunity to present this thing to you. And yeah, so I think we need to be more gracious in the streets.
That's something I think I'll learn, because sometimes they do look like a bother.
Yes.
Especially the workers.
Yes, absolutely.
Then there's some.
But imagine you could actually make
Just
someone
a smile.
stay. Yeah. Just a smile. Just hi.
And a hi.
Thank you. Not today.
Not. Oh yeah, still
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Okay.
Lakini ukimwona akikuja
unakunja uso kwanza.
Unafunga dirisha hivi anashindwa. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not to say that you be careless, because I mean there are people who have lost valuables along the way.
Yeah.
But it's just to say, you need to extend some
I think
grace.
it's the Nairobi culture where we know street people can just come and grab something from you. Yeah. We are told to be very cautious while walking in the CBD. So
yes.
Okay, now we were at Safaricom. I had a question. I have a question actually. As you're transitioning into Safaricom, you still have this degree.
Yes.
In your mind, at the back of your mind, are you still hoping that you'd practice it, or that's a long gone dream? You're like, yeah.
So 2 years
at Top Image.
Yeah. And now I got into Safaricom. When I entered Safaricom, I used to be in the operations department. And some of the things that I would do, I used to be the buyer for M-Pesa. What that means is everything you see in the agent's shop, I am the one who used to procure flyers, brochures, ISO registration books, log books, stickers, everything. I used to be the central person. I used to be the one who would source, raise LPOs, monitor delivery from the supplier. And then when they come to the store, I used to be the store manager. I'll be the one who would go and pack them in the store and send them to the sales team. And then after that, I would account.
Okay.
This is how these things were used. So that was one of the jobs. The second job under operations used to be, we used to confirm transactions. If you remember, back then, you used to call Safaricom and ask for a reversal. You'll be told to wait for 72 hours.
Yeah.
Do you remember that those days?
I was a kid, but
yes.
No phone, but
yeah. When you talk to your parents,
but I do remember.
When you talk to your parents.
Yeah. No, this is in
2009. 2008.
8.
This is 2000. No, this is 2010.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
2010.
I was a child.
Yes. So it used to be when you request for a reversal, they would initiate. So the customer care would initiate. Then you're told to wait for the confirmation.
Yeah.
So us guys in the operations used to be on the back end. We would be the people who would confirm the transactions.
Okay.
So I would make the call to the recipient.
The other one. Okay.
First of all, to say there's someone who has requested for a reversal for this transaction. And then the recipient, if there was a conflict, the recipient says, for example, the guy was paying for something. We can't touch that man.
I have an issue with that because it's a bit unfair, honestly. I have an issue with that.
Yes,
till
but
date.
There were very strict regulations from CBK.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because you see, you're going into someone's account to draw money.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can't just do it. You can't just do a reversal. You're going into someone's account. You actually have to ask for permission from that person.
Yeah.
There's this money that has come erroneously. The person has said they sent the money in error.
The wrong number, yeah.
We need to reverse. Do you agree? They say yes. Then you write the narrative and confirm the transaction.
What if now the recipient is a selfish person? They say, it's mine, it's supposed to be mine.
Selfish people used to use the money So what would happen is the money would hit the account, they
withdraw.
buy airtime.
Okay.
The moment that happens, that's the end of the story.
You cannot. You guys
can't.
from your side can't do
At
anything.
Safaricom, you at the time you could not do anything. You would tell the customer to go to the police.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean
like
the money is not
help.
there. Unfortunately, the money is not there.
Alafu ukiona police
So even if the person bought 10 shillings,
That's it.
at the beginning it used to be difficult to reverse the balance. Only then after a lot of feedback from customers is when the system was changed to allow even for part reversal.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I remember an incident where when I was working for Top Image in Western, where a customer was trying to pay for a casket. They had a funeral. They were trying to pay for a casket, and unfortunately, instead of paying, they bought airtime.
Was
10,000 shillings. At that time, I was the team leader for Western Kenya, and I remember that old man crying like a baby because alikuwa nasema hii pesa ni ya matanga.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you know what I did? I removed 10,000 shillings from my pocket and gave this old man. And then I told him to sambaza the airtime to me.
At that time, they couldn't reverse airtime.
At that time, airtime reversal was not possible. Guess what? It earned me an award.
Oh, at work?
A recognition at work.
Oh, wow. Yes. That's such a selfless
because
act,
it is
honestly.
Called customer obsession. You know, the thing where you're like, how can I help my customer? And you go over and beyond, you know, your normal call of duty. Because you see, I had no obligation to take that airtime. Yeah, I would tell him, I mean, that was your mistake.
Yeah.
Deal with
Jipange,
it. Yeah, jipange. Ilikuwa makosa yako. But then I took the airtime. I bought the airtime from him. And allowed him to now settle the medical bill.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is very selfless, honestly. Not very, very, very few people can do that. So now this is 2010.
Yes.
You've joined Safaricom as a trade
development. I was called trade marketing officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said that's where you started. Mambo yote are buying. You're the buyer for Safaricom.
So I was in operations.
Yeah.
And then I remember having a performance discussion with my boss. She was called Judith. And I told her, I'd really want to do marketing. So she told me, wow, that's interesting. Go for it. Imagine what she did is she went and had a conversation with the head of marketing. And the head of marketing allowed me to work. In the morning, I do my operations, and then in the afternoon, I do marketing. In the morning, I do my operations. In the afternoon, I do my marketing. And then for 3 months, I picked marketing so well. So I started to be the one responsible for the newsletter. We used to write a newsletter to all the agents. So I'd be the like I used to be the editor, collect the stories, put them together, get a note from the chief of M-Pesa, and then put together the newsletter, get it printed. And then we used to also have bulletins where you'd send announcements on improvements, for example, in the system or things that you're observing. There used to be a lot of fraud, warning our agents around new fraud areas and all those things. And so I picked that up and it became my thing. And in 3 months, I was transitioned to marketing fully. So my career sort of now began to change. So I moved from operations. I stopped confirming transactions and I moved to marketing. Fully. So when I moved to marketing, I figured I don't have a career.
What do you mean?
Because I have been employed as a marketer. I have never trained as a marketer. I don't have anything as a marketer. So I thought to myself, if I lose this job today and I go out to the market, it will be very difficult for me to find another job. So what I decided to do was to go back to school. So in 2012, I went back to do my master's. And I did my master's in marketing and strategic management.
Which university?
University of Nairobi.
You went back to...
I went back to the only university
Did you have
in Eastern Central
Oh,
Africa.
well, lies. So watu wa KU najua wanasikia kulia.
Yes, the only university with the article
The.
Let me ask.
Yes.
Easy decisions una make. Did you have mentors ama zinatoka tu? Because these are really...
Yeah, so I have had the privilege of getting very good mentors along the way. Majority of them picked me. I did not pick them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know how to explain that, but interestingly, every time I was in a space, I would attract a certain profile of influencers. So, for example, in CU, I had attracted pastors. So a pastor would come to preach, and they would just fall in love with this young man.
Yeah.
Because I'm very inquisitive, I'm just very naive there, asking questions, wanting to learn. And they would just like me.
Yeah.
And they would take me under their wing. And they begin to talk to me. They begin to encourage me. They begin to, invite me for their meetings. That's how I found myself, having people that I would call mentors. But I would say for those decisions, I wouldn't say that I had a specific person who was guiding me. I was just being real. Like, right now, I really don't have a career. If you look at my CV, I am trained by a chemist, but I'm working as a marketer. If I lose this job, I can't bounce back. So I began to prepare psychologically to say, I think I need to build a career in marketing. Now that I'm in the space, let me just get the qualifications. So that's how I made the decision to go back to MBA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go to marketing, now something you said earlier on now begs the question: when you want a promotion at work,
Yes.
unangojea promotion ama unauliza
You create
promotion?
Oh, yes. So that's a very interesting question. And as I've mentioned, when I was talking to Judy, my boss, and told her that my desire is to move to marketing, she actually made it possible. She was my boss, she was in operations, and she actually made it possible. Personally, I believe as a leader in any environment, you should be willing to empower the people who are below you. If Judy was a bad boss, then she would have stifled my growth.
Yeah.
She would not have opened that opportunity. And the reason why that is so important is because when you mention such a thing, your career aspiration to your manager is someone who has more networks than you do. They have access to certain rooms that you don't. Sometimes they actually know of opportunities that you can plug in that are better fitting than what you are doing. And if they are good leaders, then they will be able to lead you on to that opportunity. And as I say that, I share that example. I also share an example when I was at Safaricom. In 2018, when not Safaricom but Barclays, when Barclays was changing to Absa. I mean, we were about 5 marketers, but when we did the performance reviews in 2018 December, I remember very clearly in my mind, I talked to my boss. She's called Caroline. Now she heads marketing at Jubilee Group. Yes,
wow.
One of my most wonderful bosses. And when I was having a conversation with Caroline, I told her, Caroline, I would want you to give me the opportunity to do the transition. And you know what Caroline told me? She told me, I have done performance evaluation for everybody. No one has asked. Because you asked, you have it. And that's how I became the brand and communication lead for the transition project. Oh, wow. It's because I asked. Otherwise, I am almost certain if I did not ask, I don't think
it will have gone to someone else.
I don't think it would have been me. And I think one day I'll ask her.
If you were at all being picked, if she had thought about it.
One day I will ask her whether she really thought that I was the person to do the job. I think it's because I asked. And because there was no one else who had asked for that opportunity, then I was given the platform. And I'm very grateful because it's one of my highlights in my career. I mean, there have been very minimal brand transitions of that nature, of that scale. Not only in Kenya, but also in Africa and even globally.
Yeah.
A brand that has been in existence in a market for 114 years.
Yeah, that's...
changing its name to something else. It was a monumental opportunity.
That's a bragging right. That's what we say. That reminds me of a conversation we had. I think it's on this same podcast about timidity.
Yes.
You can't be timid and expect to excel.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hiyo kwenda kujiongea,
Yes.
it landed you that job.
Sell, yes. And in opportunities where I've been a leader of a team, I always used to encourage my team to share with me their aspirations, not only for their career, but for the year. So if this year, for example, you are looking at, say, for instance, going for training, who told you that I don't have a budget for training? Do you understand?
Yeah.
I can actually say, you know what, as I plan, I'm going to put a budget for so and so and so and so in my team who want to do this kind of training.
Yeah.
Then I have conversations with other heads of departments. I remember in one of the organizations, I won't mention the name, there's one colleague who wanted to move from a specific department, which was under me, to a different department. And I made that possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I made that possible. Because, I mean, your opportunity as a leader is to help others grow.
Yeah.
If I take you back, I mentioned about my colleague at Safaricom, who was my boss then, and I mentioned to her that I want to move to marketing.
Yeah, Judith.
Yeah. If she was not interested in my growth, she would not have created that opportunity for me to be able to move from operations to marketing. Yeah.
And I think honestly, it's a challenge that most of us young people do have. It's very, very rare do you find someone who is willing to help.
Yes.
Very. But for as long as you show a willing heart, I mean, it's all about willing buyer, willing seller. If you're willing to be mentored, then the mentee will.
Very important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
And it also talks about the level of trust that you have with your manager.
Yeah.
Because if you know that if there's no trust, then it's not possible for you to be able to open up to share such intimate things with your boss.
So also creating meaningful relationships at the workplace.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we were talking about Safaricom. You've joined after 3 months of not probation, but balancing between operations. The 3 months was probation. Balancing between operations and marketing.
No. That came after a year. So I worked in operations for a year.
Yeah.
Then when we did the evaluation with my boss, I asked for an opportunity to join marketing. Then they gave me 3 months to juggle between operations and marketing.
Now that was the probation period.
No. The probation is when you are employed, you're given a probation period of 3 months.
Oh, now in operations.
Prove your capability.
Okay.
If you don't perform in those 3 months, you will not be confirmed. You actually lose the job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You joined as a junior marketer?
Of course. It was
starting from scratch.
It was entry level.
Yeah.
It was very entry level. But I would say I grew. I grew along. I mean, I moved from trade marketing officer to M-Pesa communications officer to M-Pesa marketing manager. Wow. And then I grew up until I became a middle level manager. By the time I was leaving Safaricom, I was a segment manager in charge of the hustler segment. The hustler segment used to be the highest revenue generator for M-Pesa.
I've never heard of the hustler segment.
Yes, so those are the guys who use M-Pesa for business.
Oh.
So I'll give you an example. When you wake up in the morning, you'll find people in the streets who have gone to Gikomba and brought goods. And by the time you are going out to the streets at around 7 p.m., they're actually opening their shops.
Yeah.
They went and collected their goods in the morning,
Yeah.
early in the morning, at 5 in the morning. Those are the hustlers in this Nairobi. So they borrow, for example, from Mshwari in the morning, nachukua loan ya 10,000, anaenda ananunua fish Gikomba, anarudi, anakuja anauza the whole day, jioni analipa. The following day, same cycle, and they move a lot of transactions. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did you work at Safaricom?
I worked at Safaricom for 8 years.
8 years. So 2010 to 18.
To 2016.
2010 to
2008 to 2016.
2008 to 2016.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then now, what prompted you to leave?
So that's an interesting one. Again, the power of leaders. Visionary leaders. You know, sometimes managers don't help their people to grow. So my boss at that time had come from Airtel. Airtel Global. So he used to work in Bahrain, wapi. And when I was talking to him and asking him about career progression and career growth, he told me, you know what? The world has a lot to offer. But many times you'll confine yourself to the walls of this organization. So he told me, you should explore to see what other opportunities are available out there. And I would tell you, I began to look for a job outside of Safaricom. From there, I opened up my mind and I was like, wow, you mean you can actually grow out of the organization? And in fact, at that time, even I could see colleagues who had left the organization and were coming back at higher roles. Yeah? Yeah, and so I began to look for an opportunity. Guess what? A colleague that we had worked at Safaricom was working at Absa.
Barclays then.
And so I remember we had a very good working relationship with that person. So when he heard that I was looking for an opportunity, he reached out and told me, there's a marketing role here, and he sent me the profile. And I applied for the profile. By merit, I thank God, I was called for the interview. Of course, it didn't help me in the interview.
Yeah.
I passed the interview. His job was recruitment, granted.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am the one who did the interview. Thank God I passed. And I mean, I was able to join Absa. My growth at Absa was testament of what my boss had told me, that the world has a lot of opportunities to give. I don't think I would have had an opportunity to transition a global brand. I don't think I would have had an opportunity to build campaigns from scratch up. Why? Because at Safaricom we had a lot of specialization. So for example, if you're an events manager, you actually focus on events.
Okay.
But when I moved to Absa, I had an opportunity to manage end to end. You conceptualize something, you're the one who is responsible for the event, you're the one who is responsible for your communication plan. You will work with the communication manager, but you're responsible for the communication plan. When you're reporting, you report wholesome because you're the one, and commercial. So you look at the whole 360 of a project. So that gave me a lot of opportunity, and I think my career has grown, and I was able then to move from Absa to join the National Media Group after 6 years.
A little bit
Tell us about.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
You were talking about, by the time you're thinking of leaving Safaricom, had you gotten to a point of stagnation?
I had never stagnated.
Okay.
If you look at my profile, even on LinkedIn, I was always changing roles every 1.5 months, every 2 years. So I wouldn't say I had stagnated. I hadn't stagnated from the perspective of career. But where I got, now it was either I become a senior manager or I become a senior manager.
There was no way out.
Like, I needed to move because I had been at the same middle level
manager
for a number of years, and I needed to, I missed a senior manager role with a whisker. I don't know what was happening in my life at that time. I did very poorly in that interview. But I think it was everything. I normally say everything. God normally has a plan.
Yeah.
I think God had a plan for me to exit the organization in that way. Yeah. So when I missed that role, my desire to grow was great, and I think the opportunity at Absa presented itself. It was a better opportunity. I was remunerated much better, and so it made a lot of sense for me to just transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, you've not mentioned how you transitioned from Barclays to Absa, and I feel like it transitioned when you were in the organization. What?
Transition
from Barclays to Absa.
Yes, from Barclays to Absa. The transition of the brand.
Yeah.
That was a big project. It was Africa-wide project. So in Kenya, we had a team that was dealing with the transition of the brand. We had to think about a lot of things. So I'll give you an example of what I was doing personally. So for example, when you went to the branch, you would have forms, right?
Yeah.
Branded Absa.
Yeah.
Branded Barclays.
Barclays, yeah.
Those forms needed to change to be branded Absa.
Okay.
Okay? When you go there, you'd find brochures. Okay? All those brochures needed to go.
Yeah.
All Barclays brochures, you needed
Absa.
Absa brochures. When you approached the front of the shop, you would see a Barclays Eagle brand. That needed to go, and it was blue to red.
Yeah.
So it was very a big shift. The color of the branches used to be blue. That needed to change to red. You understand?
Yeah.
Then the hat of staff used to be blue. They needed to change to red.
How do you do
Hats needed to change to red. Very important.
Yeah.
Because when you transition a brand, you are also changing mindsets.
Yeah.
Remember, you are calling a new identity. You are saying, I am changing from this kind of a brand to this kind of a brand. One of the biggest perceptions we had was Barclays used to be considered an elitist brand.
Yeah. True.
A brand for the rich.
Yeah.
I remember some of the old guards were very bitter with Barclays because their accounts were closed because of minimum balances.
Minimum balances.
The banks the CBK had introduced certain rules, and it required banks for you to hold an account, you needed to maintain a certain minimum balance, and I think it was 10,000. So if your account didn't have a minimum balance of 10,000, your account would be shut. And that generated a lot of bitterness from customers. So there are people who used to be like, Barclays walifunga account yangu because of minimum balance. We needed to kill that perception.
Yeah.
To demonstrate to people that we are actually not a bank for the elitists. So in transitioning from Barclays to Absa, we had an opportunity to write a whole new story about this brand. To have a youth appeal, to demonstrate that we are accessible, to demonstrate that we are a bank for you, a bank for me. And that required a lot of mental shift, not only for staff, but also for customers.
Yeah.
So the whole work on brand and communication involved all that.
You're also talking about ensuring that you've not lost any.
Yes,
customers.
and ensuring that we transition without attrition. We are not losing customers, and we are not becoming a loss-making company. Because remember, that is now something that shareholders are keen to be able to see. Yeah.
Other than trying to change your perception on the clients, is there any other reason, or let me widen it to any other reason why a company would rebrand to another? Like, what are some of the... Because we've seen a lot of shifts.
Yes. So ordinarily, there will be many reasons why organizations would change. So I'll take the case, for example, for Absa. That one was very scientifically done. So Absa used to be domiciled in South Africa. and it used to be called Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, because it used to be 3 big banks that had come together.
Oh, that's the meaning of Absa.
Yeah.
That was the meaning
that was
the meaning of Absa. And so it used to be called Absa Group, but that Absa Group was bought by Barclays Group.
Okay.
Barclays was a global bank that was domiciled in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, so Barclays had bought Absa Group, so Absa was part of
Barclays.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
But then Absa Group Absa had ownership in Barclays Group, and then it also had ownership in Kenya, the Barclays Bank of Kenya. You understand?
Yeah.
So when Barclays decided to exit the African market, all the shares that were owned by Barclays were then going to be owned by the Barclays Africa Group Limited, which was domiciled in South Africa.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So Barclays Africa Group Limited owned Absa in South Africa. It owned Barclays in Kenya, Barclays in Tanzania, Barclays in the other countries. But when now they were transitioning, they looked at, if we remove the name Barclays, what is they looked at what is the value of the brand Barclays in the continent. Okay? Then they also looked at what is the value of the name Absa in the continent. Interestingly, Absa had a bigger equity than Barclays in the continent. And the reason is because the biggest business was in South Africa. And the South African business was called Absa. So it used to be Absa, but part of Barclays. Absa, part of Barclays. But then the name Amalgamated Banks of South Africa would not resonate with any other country.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So they decided, instead of throwing the baby with the bathwater, okay, let's retain the brand name Absa, but then kill the initials. So as opposed to using Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, Kenya, which was not going to work completely, then we would kill the acronym and Absa becomes a name, just like Google is a name. You understand? So they killed the acronym, and the rebrand was then introducing Absa as a brand. And not Absa the acronym. The old one.
Okay.
You understand?
So Absa is a name, not an acronym.
Absa is a name.
Okay.
And so painting that picture for customers to understand and for shareholders to understand was the work of rebranding. So that's one of the reasons. Divestiture. This investor has pulled out, and so you can't use their name anymore. So Barclays pulled out, we couldn't use Barclays in Africa completely. So that's a reason for rebranding. Another one could be you want to change perception. That would require a lot of work on probably perception that was formed by customers and investors and shareholders before that you want to do away with. Another one could be you have new investors and they have a stronger brand than yours. You could want to use the bit of the new investor to be able to attract more customers. Another reason could be you want to refresh your brand to have a modern look. Another reason could be probably when you are doing your brand identity, you didn't think about your market properly.
Okay.
And so there could be many reasons why an organization could rebrand. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. That's really resourceful.
Very resourceful.
Now you know. You're sorry, Absa. Now you know.
It's never just about changing the logo. No.
There's a lot that goes
into it. That goes into the background. Yeah.
And actually, when you see a company rebranding, there's a lot of thinking that has gone.
There's a lot more than just the logo. The logo is just the physical identity of the brand. But you think about culture of the organization, so the behavior of employees will need to change in consistency with the new identity. You see, when you talk about branding, it's giving an organization a personality. So you're saying, I'm changing from this personality to this personality. You need to develop, to bring out all the characteristics of the new personality that you want to take to the market.
Okay.
As I mentioned, for example, in the case of Absa, we needed to demonstrate that we are more accessible, we are more local,
Yeah.
You're not for the elite.
and we are not for the elitists. So even the selection, for example, of brand assets, initially we used to just do golf. Now we started to support athletics. Because athletics, we identify as it brings us together as Kenyans, and therefore it helps our organization to be able to relate with the common man. Yeah.
Okay. Naona producer anani signal hapo. So I'm on your profile, your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Tell us about NMG.
Nation Media Group. I worked there for 2 years. I joined in 2022. 2022. I exited in June of this year. I want to believe that you guys know what has been going on in the media space.
Yeah.
So there was redundancy, and my role was affected. So that's how I exited Nation. So yeah, currently I'm on a sabbatical. Doing my own stuff.
Yeah. Kwa LinkedIn nimeona umeandika career break.
Career break. Yes, so I'd say
Call
that
it a career break.
I'm on a career break. I'm also pursuing professional certification. So soon enough, I'll become a professional certified coach.
Life coach.
Leadership coach. Yeah. So helping young leaders to, bring out the best potential from within.
Is the corporate world something you'd pursue again, given the chance?
I don't mind pursuing the corporate world, but I would say that as I continue to reflect and engage, I am finding a lot of meaning in some of the things that I have been doing as on the side. So I think I mentioned earlier that I'm very big on mentorship. I'm very big on parenting training, for example, and those are things that bring a lot of joy for me. So I'd say that as I continue to reflect, those things are bringing a lot of meaning, and I think that you will see that as I continue down the line, even if I would go to corporate world, I don't mind going back just a little bit, but you'll find that my bigger focus would be on more on impact than success.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
I do understand.
More on impact, more doing things that are changing people's lives, not necessarily to profile myself as a successful career person.
Yeah. Okay. I really want us to talk about this book. Na ninaona tunashinda tukiambiwa we are almost running out of time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about molding a discipline.
A disciple.
A disciple. What? Okay. Molding a disciple. Yeah. The case for parental discipline. So this is his book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this book. Yeah. Tell us what this book is about.
This book was written during COVID time. COVID was happened in 2020. Yeah. That's when I wrote this book. And it came as a challenge from my boss. I was working at Absa at that time. My boss is an author. Our HR director was an author. She's called Geneva Musau. I've used your name without your permission. Forgive me. Yeah, but I celebrate you. That's why I mentioned that name. I think you need to check out her books. So she's an author. By the time she had written 6 books. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she formed a writing club within the organization. And it was basically to help young leaders to begin to express themselves through writing. We went through a program called Bridging the Gap. Which is how do you navigate your career to get to the next level. And so the program was 1 year. By the time we finished the program, all of us in that class had written articles that were published in the Absa Knowledge Center. These articles were so beautiful that she decided, you know what, why don't we take this to the next level? So she challenged the class and said, guys, is there anybody who would be interested in writing a book? And we raised our hands. So we raised our hands, and she actually coached us through writing a book, self-publishing.
Oh, wow.
So I had been involved in parental training for more than 8 years by that time. And so I had a great desire to begin to share some of the things I've learned, not only from my parenting experience with my children, my 3 children then,
At the time. Yeah.
but also with the experiences that were shared by the parents as we trained the parenting journey. And I had a big focus on discipline. And I know many people, when they hear the word discipline, they think about the kiboko.
The chopper.
But a twist to that, discipline is about training, not necessarily the kiboko.
Beating.
And I would throw the word, disciplined forces. When you hear disciplined forces, you don't think about kiboko. You think about the police. You think about the military.
Yeah.
And the reason why they are called disciplined forces is because they are trained in a specific way. They do things in a specific way. And so discipline in the parenting context here means that a parent is involved in actively and intentionally training their child in readiness to be a responsible citizen. And one of the questions that we used to ask in those parenting training would be, when will you consider your child an adult? Or when will you release your child into the world? And many parents could not answer that question.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about very actively, to say, by the way, when will I release my child into the world? And so that helps you to begin to think, what things do you need to put in place today so that by the time that time comes, they are actually ready. Yes, that's what the book Molding a Disciple is all about.
Okay. Let me just, because I have a question from one of the chapters that you've written, and actually talked about it in the beginning of the episode when you're saying, not in your community,
yes.
you are a child who belongs to the village.
community, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, because we've heard from stories our parents walikuwa wanasema, when you're growing up, you belong to the village to the extent where when your neighbor sees you misbehaving, they'd actually whoop you.
Absolutely.
And they have the right to do that.
Absolutely.
These days you don't see that happening. You can't.
Yes, you don't touch
someone's child.
You'll be in trouble.
How?
However,
you'll be sued.
There's hope. There's hope, and I say there's hope in this manner. Even in the modern society, the principle still applies that a child belongs to the village. And the reason I say that is because currently your child goes to church. That's one of the stakeholders. Your child goes to school. That's another stakeholder. Your child plays in the compound. That's another stakeholder. All these people are part of the community. And in raising your child, they influence your child whether you want it or not. Yeah. So I think the call to parents is, why can't you be intentional enough to ensure that the community that is influencing your child are people that you share the same values with. Intentionality in building that community, because the child belongs to the community is a fact. So that you say, if my child is a friend to you, I make sure that we share the same values. Yeah. When they come to play at your place, the values that I teach are the same values that you teach. You understand? Yeah. And that's where now the aspect of community still applies even in the modern community. In olden days, granted, you live in the same compound, your auntie, your uncle is around you, so that when you make a mistake, they're the ones reprimanding. But why were they reprimanding? It's because there was a common set of values that was shared across all these stakeholders. And that is what they would be reinforcing. You understand? Yeah. So a child belongs to the community. Yeah.
I've seen that. How do I ensure that I'm in the right community? Because now I can't. We live in very different times.
So I'll give an example of where I go to church. I believe you have a church and you go there. And I believe in your church there are small communities
Yeah.
where integrate. So
Yeah,
an
yeah.
example of a small community would be a Bible study. That Bible study group could be your community,
Okay.
as an example.
Okay.
So it's the same thing that happens in our church. So when parents are dedicating their children, they come for a class. The class takes 6 weeks. So you and other parents go through that training of parenting, of how to navigate the parenting journey to ensure that you raise your child in a godly way. At the end of these 6 weeks, as trainers, we try to encourage these families to begin to form a community amongst themselves.
Okay.
Why? Because your children are of the same age, and therefore most of you will be going through the same challenges. Granted, some of the parents would have older children and others would have younger children, but you'll see the experiences that each of these parents will have then becomes very resourceful information that is going to help the rest of the members in that community. We formed ours more than 11 years ago when we went through that training. Until to date, we have our children are teenagers.
Wow.
We have been having family get-togethers. We meet every quarter. We even have Santas on secret Santas during Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Imagine, and this group was formed in church when we went through the training 11 years ago. And so we discuss topical issues on parenting. So like right now we are figuring out how do we help our young boys to transition from wakati wanaenda into rites of passage.
Yeah, the boyhood to manhood.
For the girls, the same thing. The mothers are thinking, how do we empower our girls to be confident and as they go through these changes in their bodies and all that. And so you become peer supporters.
Yeah.
That's a community that you can find.
I've listened to a lot of podcasts a lot of parenthood podcasts, and they talk about the fear of raising up your child and ile kuogopa that you do not know who they interact with outside there. But right now I see the power in having a community of people who you share the same struggles and the same joys and the same values, especially in ensuring the child is growing up vizuri. We can purchase this book.
This book is available. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Nuria Bookstore. It's available on many other bookstores. You can also inbox me on any of my social media handles. And I will organize to make sure that you get it.
Okay.
Yeah. It goes only for 1,000 bob.
Only for 1,000 bob. Yeah. Are we expecting more books?
Yes. There's one that is in the cooking, and it focuses on relationships. I'm spilling the beans, but
we will have you here again.
Yeah, what I have, one of the things that really I've experienced is there's a lot of surge in divorces in our society today, and so I have been curious to try and find out what is going on in this space. And I think I've gleaned on a lot of wisdom and insights from friends who have gone through this very unfortunate experience. And I think there are lessons that we can actually share with many other young people to be able to reduce these rates, because if you've read about divorce, it is very devastating, especially for children and families. You know, it's like they say when you get married, you become one. Yeah. So it's like ripping. Yes, it's ripping it apart. So you can imagine the shreds, the blood, it's a messy affair, and there's a lot of hurt, and unfortunately it is really, really affecting our children. And so it's something that we really need to think about as a society on how do we address it.
Okay. Interesting. I think we will need to have you come back here again, because there's a lot we've not talked about, especially with the book. I'd really want to talk solely about the book, because I think there's a lot for us to learn, even for us who are upcoming parents, how to raise up a kid in the godly way. So we'll have you here again.
Looking forward.
And maybe attend some few of your leadership classes.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can go ahead and mention your social media pages. I know they're going to be up on screen. So that if anyone wants the book, if anyone wants to reach out for the trainings, the leadership trainings that are yet to come, we are very excited for you when you become a trainer, a certified coach. You said, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We will talk about leadership training again. I think we will have you here again and again and
Coaching,
again for a lot. So karibu sana.
Thank you. So on Instagram you can check out Julai Mdindi. On Twitter you can check at Philbert Julai, and on LinkedIn I use Philbert Julai Mdindi. So please go there. Let's engage. I really believe in the power of technology for us to be able to exchange ideas.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us your
Thank you
knowledge.
for having me.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. We appreciate it
It's a joy.
so much. So to our viewers, thank you so much for being here till the end. I know you've learnt a lot. Na mnajua kwa comment kama mnataka akuje tena, isemeni tutamleta, because demand, we will give you what you demand. So do not forget to subscribe to our channel, follow us on our social media platforms, they're down below, and make sure you keep up with us as we keep up with you. So till next time, till the next episode, goodbye, God bless, and we love you.